Hello everyone. Since absolutely nobody was demanding this, I decided to make another video on the SCP Wiki. One reason why I started doing this series is that I wanted to highlight some of the more obscure 001 proposals, but at the same time I do want to talk about some of the more popular ones, even if they've been talked to death by other people. So I'm going to do a couple of obscure articles and maybe one or two popular ones. Anyway, since YouTube analytics tell me that nobody watches more than 3 minutes of my video, I'll just get on to the topic now. In my last video, I talked about how a lot of 001 proposals try to create a potential origin story for the Foundation and some of its major concepts. Some proposals instead use this opportunity to present a huge revelation about the Foundation, like the Foundation's actually some kind of paranormal anomaly, or all the anomalies in the world all came from one place, or the people in the SCP universe somehow gained self-awareness of being fictional and... This proposal is something like that. Once you click on the link to Not a Seagull's proposal, the first thing you see is a big block of text saying that SCP-001 only exists as a technical containment for an anomaly. So the document contains an anomaly. Well, now I feel comfortable reading and knowing that something can reach through the screen and eat my face. Once you proceed, you find out that SCP-1 is given the containment class Akita, standard fare for most SCPs. In this article, SCP-001 refers to three things. The first is what I call SCP-001-0. It's an ongoing ZK-class reality failure scenario. Don't worry, I'll try and explain what that means. Basically, it means the reality itself is breaking down and it's an ongoing process. The only reason why it hasn't broken down is because of another paranormal entity, that being SCP-001-1 and SCP-001-2. SCP-1-1 is a floating sphere which has a texture very similar to TV static, and any matter that enters this sphere is turned into argon gas. Occasionally, it's possible to see SCP-001-2 inside SCP-001-1. SCP-1-2 is described as being humanoid looking, and descriptions of it are hard to pin down. Most descriptions of it say that it has elongated limbs and an emancipated physique. So we have three seemingly unrelated anomalies: a breakdown of reality, a floating orb, and an entity that sometimes appears inside the floating orb. How are they connected, you ask? Well, the reality failure keeps getting worse unless someone uses the floating gas ball to communicate with the humanoid inside. The only way to stop -0 from getting worse is to use -1 to somehow entertain -2. Yeah, I said entertain, like juggling and shit. To get some idea on how the Foundation entertains -2, we can look at an attached document which shows the history of the cave in which -1 is located in, called Point Alpha. Point Alpha was believed to have been found by prehistoric Babylonians and was patrolled by an order of sages that wouldn't let anyone near the place that knew how to read or write. After the group of sages became defunct, possession of and protection of 001-1 went from one secret society to another. That is, until it landed in the hands of an Islamic group called the Society for the Containment of the Badel Demon. The society kept a record of ways it tried to entertain -2, mainly by reading it various stories of Islamic literature and noting how it reacted. That's where we learned -2 is really picky about his reading materials. If you read a story it doesn't like or a story it's heard one too many times, it begins to flail and thrash about, which causes the reality breakdown to worsen drastically. But if it gets that good shit, reality breakdown will lessen. The society was eventually absorbed into another organization called ORIA, and they started taking care of the situation. Until they read SCP-001-2 the wrong story, and it started flailing around way too much. This caused the sphere to get much larger, the sky worldwide to turn to TV static, and in addition to that, reality began to break down all over the world, heavily damaging the Earth's geography. ORIA was able to calm the thing down, but the destruction to the Earth was so widespread that the Foundation had to activate SCP-2000. For those of you unaware, SCP-2000 is a giant cloning facility underneath Yellowstone National Park. The Foundation figured out how the facility worked and put in place a plan to use SCP-2000 in case any kind of apocalypse wiped out most of the population. One slightly creepy aspect of SCP-2000 is that when the Foundation explored deeper into the facility, they found the skeletal remains of a Foundation researcher. Said researcher is widely believed to be still alive, so that most likely means that SCP-2000 was used at least once and nobody knows when or why. After ORIA nearly destroyed the entire planet, they decided to hand over SCP-1 to the Foundation. The Foundation did their best to entertain -2, but it was never easy to find out what it liked and what would piss him off. One guy proposed using an AI to create stories for it, but when they did that, it absolutely hated them and they had to go back to using literature. After trying and failing to find easier ways to keep the thing entertained, someone eventually got the bright idea to read it some SCP documents, and they liked it quite a lot. So the Foundation fell back on reading it some of their own documents until it started getting tired of them. Now here's where things get interesting. Since Dash 2 likes Foundation stuff, the Foundation is authorized to begin looking for more anomalies to write about, as well as writing various proposals to imitate their document style. In another part of the document, it said that they had to either rewrite existing SCPs to be more interesting to Dash 2 or go out and find more. What this proposal is saying is that essentially the SCP universe is not all that bad. All the paranormal objects out there clearly aren't super dangerous and in immediate need of containment because the Foundation had to go out there and look for them instead of making sure they don't kill people. The ones that they do find, they have to rewrite them to be more dangerous, more interesting than they actually are. That's why there are thousands of SCPs out there that can end the world or eat their face. Because there really aren't any. Or at least not that much. So wait, was 096 just a guy who doesn't like people looking at his face? Is the 610 virus just a bad rash? Are the children of SCP-2131 just slightly ugly babies? Eventually, the Foundation happened upon a permanent and safe solution for SCP-001-2. Turns out he has a huge throbbing ego boner and likes to hear stories about himself. So eventually they found a way to play the document we're reading right now on a continuum loop, and that seems to keep him happy. At the end of the document, it just loops around to the beginning, giving credence to this. Well, at least the problem's solved, right? Although this story could have a deeper meaning. Think about this. Is SCP-001-2 an allegory for the audience? I mean, it's in constant need of being entertained, constantly demanding bigger and more fantastic stories, super picky about what he wants to see. When he doesn't get what he wants, it throws a tantrum, has a huge ego, and above all is very ugly. Very interesting. Before I get into this next proposal, I need to talk about two things in the SCP universe. The first is the O5 Council. Within the universe, the O5 Council is widely regarded as the highest authority within the Foundation. It consists of 13 members who run the Foundation from the shadows and whose origins are contradictory and mysterious. Naturally, they make for great writing topics if you want to make an SCP-1 proposal. The second thing I want to talk about is the factory. See, the Foundation is not the only people who have an interest in the paranormal. There are several other organizations like the Global Occult Coalition, a rival to the Foundation and is more concerned with destroying anomalies rather than containing them. There's the Chaos Insurgency, a terrorist organization that steals and uses anomalies. Then there's the factory, something or someone that creates and sells objects that on the surface seem normal but quickly turn out to be quite strange, like a sharpener that sharpens pencils way beyond what should be possible, or a sticker that when applied to a machine makes it run at well over 100% efficiency. Who is the factory? Who runs it? Why do they make these objects? How do they make these objects? Well, Dr. Bright's proposal gives us a possible answer to that, as well as diving into a possible origin for the O5 Council, as well as the Foundation. Instead of a document detailing what SCP-001 is, we're given a classic first-person story. Well, technically it's not that straightforward. The story is you, the reader, are being confronted by a member of the O5 Council after you kept digging into what SCP-001 is. But instead of shooting you and telling everyone you committed suicide by headbutting a bullet, the O5 is actually going to give you what you want. He's going to tell you what the real SCP-001 is and why you won't find any documentation of it on the main database. But to do that, he has to tell you a very, very long story. A long time ago, in 1953, there was a factory made by a dude named James Anderson. The factory was huge, closer to a small town than a single facility, and was built for a place for employees to both live and work. What people who signed up to work for the Anderson factory didn't know was that they were basically signing up for slavery. The hours were obscenely long, the conditions were subhuman, and the staff were pretty much worked to death. Anyone who got injured or could no longer work were dragged off into the factory bowels, never to be seen again. President Grant got wind of the Anderson factory and dispatched a team of agents to go in and investigate. That's where the O5 comes in. At the time, he was part of a special off-the-books government strike team dispatched by the government to deal with particularly dark and nasty messes. So the team busted into the factory one night and found out that the rumors they heard made the place look like a job picking flowers in comparison to what it actually was. The factory looked like something out of a horror movie, with rows upon rows of people, little more than skeletons chained up to their machines. After the agents took care of the guards, Anderson released his creations. Turns out he had been taking the injured staff and experimenting on them, turning them to grotesque human-animal hybrids. After fighting through a level from fucking doom, O5 and his men found Anderson hiding in his office, and after everything they had been through, O5 and his men calmly and rationally hacked Anderson to pieces. After freeing all the prisoners and finishing off the last of the furries, The O5 had a problem that needed its solving. The factory was full, and I mean full, of all kinds of weird shit. Cloaks that allowed you to access a shadow dimension, toy guns that shot real bullets. Must have been fun figuring that one out. Undead horses that run super fast. So the O5 gathered all his top men and asked them what they should do with all this stuff. One guy suggested that they should destroy all these abominations unto God. Another guy called Marshall saw a dollar sign selling them to the highest bidder, but he was rightfully shut down. One other guy just suggested going back to President Grant and letting him sort it all out. Instead, the O5 had a better idea. Earlier in the story, it's implied that this is not the first time the O5 had run into something paranormal. So he got the idea to remodify the factory into a base of operations, study what they had, and collect more. Turn the factory into a research and containment facility to protect the world from threats that they didn't even know existed. So O5 and his 12 most loyal companions started using their influence and connections to build this initiative, getting other soldiers and scientists to work on what they found and helping them find more. Not everyone agreed with this idea though. The guy who suggested destroying the factory tried to light it on fire and then just kind of left when that failed miserably. The guy named Marshall was caught doing something that O5 didn't approve of and he was thrown out. Marshall would later on go to create a business called Marshall Carter and Dark, which specialized in buying and selling paranormal objects. And that one guy who suggested that he should go and tell the president left to go and do that. So that's it, right? The O5 went on to found the SCP organization through the factory, inadvertently created a few paranormal organizations along the way. That should be the end of the story, right? Well, not really. We haven't gotten to the fairies yet. The fairies are technically not called that. The Foundation only calls them that because they were a race of creatures that looked identical to humans, except they're allergic to iron. And no, the Foundation didn't go to war with people for having iron deficiency. These guys also rode magical monsters and stuff. Anyway, the Foundation fought these guys for years until 1911, when the fairies attacked the factory. Everyone was slaughtered. The guards, the scientists, even the O5's inner circle. The only one left was the O5 himself, and he ran into the deepest, darkest part of the factory. There he found Anderson's ghost waiting for him. Ghost Anderson made him a proposition. He would help him out of the situation if he did him a favor. All he had to do was supply the factory with fuel. What that meant at the time was unclear, but we'll get back to that later. O5 of course said yes and was transported back to the day of the attack, this time armed with magic weapons, and this time it was the fairies that got slaughtered. O5 didn't just stop with the fairies in the factory. He and his men went to hunt down every fairy in every corner across the planet, killing them all until none were left. You know, I never said the SCP Foundation were the good guys in this story. After the Foundation commits a genocide, O5 boards up the factory and moves his operation to another facility. After a while, he thought that everything was okay, and he put Anderson and the deal out of his mind. Until one day he found one of those toy guns that shot real bullets in his office, and realized he still had to uphold his side of the bargain. The factory somehow feeds on people, so he started giving the factory all the dead bodies of test subjects, dead guards, and sometimes live people, because he sure as hell doesn't want to know what happens if he doesn't uphold the deal. And so the O5 has done this for almost 100 years. But why is he telling you this? Well, he's really, really old and he just wants to retire, but he needs someone else to take care of the factory for him. Since you seem so curious, congratulations, now you get to take care of this demonic, abandoned, ex-death camp for him. Isn't being curious so wonderful and rewarding? Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you want to see more stuff I'm working on, you can check out my Instagram and Twitter account. My next video probably won't be an SCP video. I'll see if I can do a movie review, or a video game review, or a comic review. Who knows? Anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.